Episode 3 of Payday 3's Dev Diary series has just dropped, and it's time to talk about everything they discuss in it, because it is a 10-minute diary talking all about the combat in Payday 3. So I'm quite excited to dive into this. Just like Episode 2, I'm going to be doing a reaction first and foremost, and then afterwards my analysis. It's going to be a long reaction with it being 10 minutes, but just like last time, timestamp on screen now and also in the chapters in the video, so you can skip ahead and just hear my analysis of it if that's all you want to see. But if you want to watch the reaction, stick around, because we're going to go straight into it and have a chat about combat in Payday 3. So let's bring the scene up right immediately and get straight into it. I'm very excited. Let's just see what they've got to say. We're not going to delay too much other than to say make sure you like the video if you enjoy it and click that subscribe button if you want to stay in touch with all future Payday 3 content. Let's get into it though. Let's see what they've got to say about combat in episode 3 of 9 of Payday 3's Dev Diary series. Off we go.
I mean, I haven't said everything that those are though.
Do we want to tell them everything?
It's so weird seeing some of these devs now, having actually met them in Stockholm. Both these guys, Mio and Jimmy, they're both lovely.
We weren't specifically looking to fix Payday the Heist or Payday 2. We feel like those games have their own identity. I am Mildred Kovacevic, also known as Mio. I am senior game designer here at Starbreeze. On launch, Payday 3 will have 4 difficulties. We have normal, hard, very hard, and overkill.
Notice them saying
the
at
general
launch.
intention is if you're just starting out the game and you're still learning how to play Payday 3, we recommend you start off with normal. Once you're used to that, you can move to hard mode, and hard is sort of our default difficulty while you're still leveling up after you understand how the game works. Very hard is our difficulty where you've progressed enough through the game where you have a loadout you're comfortable with. If you're a veteran player, you'll probably be playing very hard in default. Overkill in Payday 3 is planned to be a brutal, unfair difficulty. So in terms of enemies, one of the bigger changes people will find is that we don't segregate enemies based on the difficulty you're playing. What we want is players to be able to experience any part of the game across all difficulties. So what we instead do is we play with the enemy numbers and we play with their accuracy and damage.
That's what I was going to talk about as well, because I'm going to do a lot of the analysis after this, so I don't make it super long for the reaction. But first off, as I talked about in my video last week, the fact that you've got enemy health being the same across all difficulties, I'll no doubt mention that in a second, is very synonymous of you having the same experience and just the difficulty changing in other ways. But also, I like that he mentioned that like enemies won't be locked off. They're basically saying, you know, how on Payday 2, dozers are locked off to certain difficulties, certain types are locked off to even higher ones. I think cloakers don't even appear on normal. I like the idea that every enemy will appear on any difficulty, regardless of what you play, but it's the size of them, the strength of the AI, the knowledge and the way they play that's going to be different. I really like that, and it's a big plus for Payday 3's kind of combat and difficulty layout.
One other thing that people will notice is we don't actually change their health values.
What did I say?
The difficulties. And this is because we want to encourage people to be able to play with each other. There's one feeling we want to avoid is a situation where you have to play on an easier difficulty and be bored, or they have to play on a harder difficulty and be overwhelmed.
Yeah. It's a good way.
One thing that matters a lot is the movement in the game, where you have sliding and mantling and vaulting and all these other movement options for you as a player. My name is Jimmy Karlström. I'm a senior game designer here at Starbreeze. Your armor affects the player's total weight as a base, but then also other things can affect that weight. This allows you as a player to be faster or slower depending on what you have equipped.
Yeah.
The bigger change are on the armor system that the player has. I'm Martin Wern. I am a lead gameplay programmer. The armor is built up of shards, so you can you have like specific components that can be broken down by getting shot at. It can recoup, but if you lose one, you lost it forever. Not forever. You can still get it back from armor bag, similar to what we have the doctor bag or medic bag in Payday 2.
There you go. So the armor is in chunks, but you can regenerate a specific chunk as long as you don't break it completely. See, even I didn't quite pick up on that. Like I said, there were some things I didn't pick up on when I was playing because I got a good enough overall view of the game. I mean, that was obvious from making a 45-minute video over the notes I took, but there were some things I didn't quite have a chance to take into account, mainly because I didn't get tons of time to play. I was also doing interviews as well at the same time. Thank you to everyone who watched all those, by the way. But it's interesting to know that the armor does have a regenerability, but it is based on the chunks, because that was something I missed out on, and I do like that.
The health is not regenerating at all. It's just, going down. As soon as you lost the armor, you start losing the health.
So we also have different things affecting different health bars at any time. So for example, your standard enemies, if they shoot you, they will first hit the armor, but certain special enemies will circumvent that. So you can't just rely on stacking armor and not worrying about health. Health is also a resource you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, it would make sense with gas grenades to
what's
your
new
health.
about enemies. First, I just want to explain how we categorize the enemies internally. So we have 3 categories. We have the common enemies, so that's your bread and butter SWAT and heavy SWAT. Then we have what we call the uncommon enemies. Internally, that is the shield and the sniper. And then we have the specials, and they're there to break the pace.
Okay. Oh, the cloaker noise. Oh, the cloakers are so good.
You lost a respect for the bulldozer. Yeah, in Payday 3 we are upping him again. It's not like it's only getting more health or more spongy. He has a couple of new behaviors as well that might surprise the players. One of the behaviors is the bull rush. You might stand there, shoot at him, you might be ignoring him, looking in a different direction, and then he just can decide to bull rush you.
Yeah.
And that will, tackle you, make you immobile for a while. Same thing if you get too close to him. If you walk up to him, he will kick you.
The attention to detail of some of this stuff
should be back in Payday 3.
Yeah.
This is true for a dozer, but also true for all our specials. If you really, really, really hate a certain special, you can build something that basically deletes them for you from the game. So if you really hate the dozer and you never want to see a dozer again, you can have a build that consistently 3-shots the dozer, but you will be weaker in other aspects of the game.
And this is where it goes into...
That's what they said in the showcase. That's what I mentioned in the video as well, was that, yes, someone said, I think it was Mio, said he had a build that was just really good for 3-shotting dozers, but as soon as you get swarmed by other enemies, you were literally screwed. I like that they're saying that they can do that for any enemy as well. That's a really important thing, that you don't want to just focus so much on dealing with a dozer, that a cloaker kicks your ass, or you have a taser causing you a problem, or zapper as they're being called now. I like that there's different considerations for different enemies here. That makes a big difference, I think, and it allows each enemy to feel unique without, the more kind of mushing together as just some other person to deal with. I like that.
That's the dozer, but you will be weaker in other aspects of the game.
And this is where it goes into playing with your friends, right? You can be the dozer deleter, or one of your friends then can be the squad deleter. It's all about cooperation and trying to find a way through the heist together.
So the Nader is a new enemy type. He has a bunch of gas grenades on him and flashbangs, so he will take the gas grenade and throw it where the players are, and this will create a gas cloud that exists for a certain amount of time. While you are in that cloud, you cannot sprint, and you will take damage over time directly to your health.
That's logical. I'm all for that.
Zapper is very similar to how he used to be. We have made some smaller changes to how the stun works. You will have first a partial stun where you can still shoot back and move your aim and try to free yourself. But if you don't manage to do that, you will enter a full stun. Cloakers have had a really big update. I would argue that they've gotten the most love, even though they don't deserve it because nobody likes cloakers. We want the cloaker to feel like a bully. So
they look so
he now
good.
Has 2 nightstick bracers. If you leave a deployable unattended and he walks past it, he will melt it with a bottle of acid because he's a toxic person.
Andreas kept wanting to tell us about that. He was so proud of that.
Really neat improvement is on the shield enemies. The other SWATs have a behavior where they understand the shield much better, so they can actually walk behind this guy, use him as a cover, stand behind him, go out, shoot at the player, go back in behind. So it creates a little bit more interesting dynamic.
And I like that as well, because it means that you're not, every time you see a shield, your instant thought isn't to just run around them and shoot them until they stop following you around. It's that you actually want to try and aim for that front panel that you can see on there quite plainly. There is a panel you can shoot through now, and that's probably what they want you to focus on more, because they're trying to swarm cops around them, so they've got their back covered, unlike in Payday 2. Again, it's that strategy, it's that improvement of the AI logic that just makes it so much better and more enjoyable.
The shield is really not there to kill you. He has a handgun, but he's mostly there to support other units. So if you have just a solo shield, he's probably annoying. If you have a shield that's covering for multiple enemies, then he's actually dangerous.
And of course, there are still chances to run around regardless.
That goes into the game, we are looking at a lot of different things. What is the sort of perception of a weapon in the real world, and what do we need to fulfill a certain gameplay element. So the weapon modding in Payday 3 is very similar to Payday 2 in the aspects of like you can pick your own sight, your magazines, stocks, etc. But the way you get them is a little bit different. So each gun has their own progression and their own progression path, where you as a player play the game as you gain experience with that gun and as you use it throughout multiple heists, then you will unlock more options and you will be able to find new ways to play with it.
And it might be a hot take, because I've seen people say they don't like this, but I think that's a much better way of doing it. I think, you know, the whole thing with the weapon DLC in particular in Payday 2 is you buy the guns, you've got all the attachments, you mess around with them, you find a build, job done. I think you get more bang for your buck and also just more enjoyment out of the game if you spend that time getting used to a weapon, building up those attachments, and just having fun with them. It's what Call of Duty's done for literally years, and even if Call of Duty in recent years has not been as good as it used to, that's a system that's always worked. You unlock the attachments as you play. And I really like that. It's a bit more of an encouragement to get used to a gun and adapt it and mold it around how you play, rather than just, here's all the attachments, pick something that you think works or looks good and then just have fun with it. You're actually trying things out because you're forced to go along that path slowly and build up the attachments and go, this works, this doesn't, this works, and it allows you to be more conscious of the guns, which I really, really like. So, big improvement there.
One thing that we have in Payday 3 is preset weapons. These are essentially weapons that come pre-configured with already a set of mods equipped on them, but also a unique look that you can't get otherwise. Something that is important when you're playing with the preset weapons is that even though you're playing with these preset weapons, you're still progressing the base weapons levels. And that is a really important factor, so you never lose out on that progression. We are just saying like, hey, you're playing with this gun, cool, you're gaining experience to it. So the overkill weapons in the game, they are essentially your big power-up. It's something that you gain progress toward during a heist when you are completing objectives. And then as you gain this progress, at some point then later, you can call in your overkill weapon. This is something that is supposed to be a real power upgrade for you and help you get out of that sticky situation. We have a recoil system that is a spray pattern and a gun kick based system that allows you to essentially control your recoil in certain aspects, but there are always a little bit of randomization that you can't control. But with that said, you can learn and master the spray patterns and find a weapon that really suits your personality and what you want to play with. It's not about finding a specific breakpoint in a game where you want to reach a specific stat number, as in Payday 2 necessarily. Instead, it's about what you enjoy in your combat situations and how you want to engage with it.
So there are a couple of different gadgets. You have ECM jammer that blocks the enemy to alert. It also blocks cameras. You have a mini camera that you can place, and then you can
on anybody
at any time view through these cameras. The idea is obviously that you as a team equip different ones and you get different possibilities within the heist. I believe we have created a really good foundation. I think it's a good first step.
I would like the community to explore the opportunities of Payday and how the different ways you can approach a heist, and also how their choices in the game, both when it comes to loadout and their actions, actually has an impact.
I would like to see players complain about their hatred towards the enemies in particular. I know that the Cloaker is much hated, and I hope people learn to hate him even more.
Mio's coming across a bit sadistic there, buddy. He wants to see you get angry. No, I appreciate that. I get it. Right. Well, there you go. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Dev Diary number 3. Now, I want to go to straight talking about the game. However, I want to pull something up because I swear I saw in here somewhere that there was, yes, indeed, there was a HUD. Now, there's been some discussion about the HUD in the B-roll, and I was saying about how it wasn't quite like the updated look of the HUD in Payday 3. I'm going to hide my camera for a second just so you can see this. Yeah, so this looks like the new HUD they're going for in like their beta build. It could still change, obviously. So in case there's any doubt between the B-roll footage and, as we said, us playing a different build to how it looked in the B-roll, that kind of thing, you've got a proper definitive look at how the HUD is currently looking right now. And you can see things that are very similar, like the font and the ammo count and some of the weapon icons, but some things being different. This looking a bit more like Payday the Heist with having the different characters here. I will say I do much prefer them with masks. I think if you were going to have icons there, I'd love it if it were masks. I think the problem is they probably don't have a system in place to show the mask of whatever mask your player is wearing, so they're just going for the faces to make it easier. It would be cool if they could come up with some kind of design to show the mask that a player has equipped over the character's face, or even just the base mask, something like that. I just think the masks are more iconic than the faces, especially since the faces are changing going into Payday 3. But apart from that, I think the HUD looks really good. There's not too much going on, but it's nice, it's clean, shows you what you need to say, and it allows you to roll perfectly with it. So I really, really do like that. But that is everything in the video. So now let's talk about the full analysis. Let's break the whole thing down because there is a lot to talk about in this that I really, really enjoyed. So they focused on a few different things. They talked a bit about the difficulty, a bit about the enemies, and a bit about the weapons and how the weapons will work. So let's start in the order they did and look at the difficulty. So I haven't got too much more to say about this bit specifically, why I'm starting with it realistically, because it kind of covers what I talked about in last week's video. If you haven't seen it already, I gave my full breakdown of playing Payday 3 early. But the difficulty, the thing I love about it, as I said, is that the enemy health is all the exact same across all difficulties. That is the biggest improvement you could have possibly made. As they've said, they don't want it to feel boring playing on a lower difficulty and ridiculously challenging to play on a higher difficulty. As I've said previously on the record, I used to be very, very good at Death Sentence 1 Down. I had like a phase for like a year where I was really good at it, and then fell off because I just didn't care for dealing with really high health, spongy enemies. It didn't feel enjoyable to me once I kind of reached that peak and fallen out of it. It's why now I play on like Overkill or Mayhem, because I enjoy just having a more reasonable health pool to deal with and still having a bit of a challenge within that. So now knowing that the health will be the same and it's the way that enemies behave, the things they do, and also spawn numbers, that's more interesting to me. I like the idea that the higher you play, the more enemies there are, rather than the stronger they are. That's a big change that I really, really enjoy. Additionally, like I said, the fact that the enemies are not locked off to difficulties, as I've said when I was reacting, the fact that certain, for instance, bulldozers, I think bulldozers with shotguns didn't appear till very hard and things like that. I really didn't like that certain enemies just wouldn't show up at certain difficulties. It made achievement hunting for some things a bit difficult. I remember the days of trying to kill a bulldozer with a broadsword and finding that quite challenging on overkill difficulty. But the idea that everyone will show up every time, and again, it's about how they behave and how many there are, rather than what and how tough they are, is just so beautiful to me. I really, really, really love that. And on top of that, the other thing was them recommending difficulties. They reinforced what I said, which was that normal difficulty is not for people who are new to shooters, it's for people who are new to Payday 3 specifically. So if you are new to the game and you want to get used to the mechanics, you play on normal, then hard is their kind of normal middle ground. It's the one that they want people to settle at if you want a comfortable difficulty. I found that interesting. And then very hard is more challenging, and overkill is you're insane, good luck. I like there's a bit of a gap between them, basically, a bit of a spread, and that there is quite a nice distinction between those difficulties, rather than in current Payday 2, where normal to overkill are pretty much the same. I mean, normal, you can pretty much make a build and be invincible, whereas overkill, you're a little bit easier to kill. But across the four, there's not really much of a curve exponentially across how things are challenging or how they change at all. So having distinct, unique difficulties across all four is really good. And of course, they did specify that these are difficulties at launch, which means they may add another difficulty later on. It's something they told us in Sweden as well. In one way, I almost hope they don't do that, but another way, I'm expecting them to do it, so I'm just kind of ready for it. But I also know that if they add that fifth difficulty, hopefully just a fifth, let's not go too far, that again, they'll make it more interesting. It may be about increasing the spawns a bit more. It may be about having the cops huddle up more in packs, having certain specials work together. You could have bulldozers and naders maybe going together in groups. They could change things around and make it more interesting. Just add that extra bit of challenging flair, rather than, here's difficulty where all the health is doubled, go for it. They're not going to do that, and I do appreciate that. So what we've got works really, really well. So difficulties, in my opinion, vastly improved. Vastly, vastly improved. Almost as big of an improvement from 2 to 3 as stealth is. There's some really, really cool changes there. Big changes. The next thing is also the enemies. I've talked a little bit about that with the difficulties, but I just like them giving a bit of a breakdown for all the key enemies. They're stressing the bulldozer is meant to be feared again. Having things like him bull rushing into you or kicking you, those are really good. And also just making it feel like he's more of a threatening presence, because bulldozers in current Payday 2 are more of a nuisance than an actual fright. Like for me personally, I'll walk up to a dozer and go, right, let's see if I can kill him. And if he kills me first, I get annoyed and then go, let's kill the dozer. I don't feel any sense of intimidation there. I don't hear a bulldozer coming around the corner and go, oh, there's a dozer coming. I don't fear that. Whereas now it feels like they want you to be intimidated. When you see a bulldozer, you need to give it your attention. You need to put your time into it. Otherwise, they're going to overwhelm you. And I like that. I really, really do. Also specifying the thing that Andreas loves so much about cloakers, pouring acid onto equipment. Love that. But just going through general features, one in particular that I should mention is that tasers have been renamed to zappers. I don't know the actual reason behind it, but I swear I heard recently that taser is an acronym. So I'm going to look that up real quick because it could be based on that. Oh, it is. So the term taser is abbreviated from Thomas A. Swift Electric Rifle, after the 1911 novel Tom Swift and His Electric Rifle. So maybe it's to do with getting away from the name that's within taser. That could be it. Could be that, because I mean, you know, they often are called stun guns, that kind of thing, rather than being called tasers. But that would explain why Zapper is the new name. They're moving away from the name, possibly. Could be that. Might even be a legal thing. Who knows? I really don't know, but that seems like it could be something to do with that. But aside from that, just getting a bit of a breakdown of the different enemies, how they handle, how they play. And also, I really like the distinction that certain enemies will work towards your health rather than your armor. Getting that breakdown of how armor works means a lot to me, because that was one thing I missed when I was playing the game, that you can regenerate a specific chunk, but once that chunk breaks, you get it back from an armor bag. Brilliant. But it makes sense that gas grenades would deal with your health. You know, if you're wearing body armor and someone poisons you, the body armor isn't going to do anything. Well, that's just their surplus to requirements. You want it to deal with health damage if you want it to feel like at least a bit more realistic. Whereas when you walk into gas grenades in Payday 2, you take the armor damage first, and that never really made a lot of sense to me. So again, it feels like they're going for a bit more realism. It's a general vibe with Payday 3, and I really, really like that. So overall, the enemies I do really, really like. There's some real cool things to analyze within them and how they play, and also with shields, but I kind of talked about that in the reaction bit, so I don't want to overdo it, but for people who did skip it, I like that the shields basically are more of a group defense now. You don't just run around one shield and kill him. There's other cops there. You can still try and run around, but you're going to have much more of a fight on your hands. So try and aim through that panel to make life a bit easier. Do it at range with a decent weapon and make it more of an interesting battle. Rather than just let's run around him and kill him, you have to play a bit more tactfully. And it feels like they're doing that with a lot of the enemies. You have to be very careful and plan your moves. And I really, really like that. The only thing to mention is I was told in the briefing that all the enemies were making a return, or maybe it was a blanket statement, but I haven't seen any medics. So maybe they've got rid of medics, question mark? Not sure what's going on there. And also, I suppose I should mention the US Marshal and the Marshal Shield that came with the Texas Heat campaign. They don't seem to be here, either of them, but I guess they were more of an experiment to fiddle around with. Maybe they've decided not to use them. Who knows? Maybe they'll bring them back in a new difficulty. I don't know. But at present, it seems that the Medic, the Marshal Sniper, and the Flash Shields are not there. So no great shakes. The medic was a bit annoying anyway, so I don't really mind them being removed. A medic just suddenly raising the health of the enemy again in the middle of combat doesn't feel super realistic, so maybe getting rid of that is a strive to make it feel more realistic. You can't have that enemy there. He'd have to actually bring a cop over and heal them, maybe stab a syringe in their arm to bring them back, rather than it being an instant, get some health back, there you go, you got full health again, go have fun. That might be why they haven't brought the medic back, or maybe the medic is back and they haven't mentioned it, but if he was back, I feel like they'd have said it in this episode. And the final thing was weapons. I really like them talking about the weapons and the weapon progression, and again, I talked about it a bit in the reaction. I'm trying to balance what I say in the reaction and what I say here, so people who skip don't miss out on things, but I do feel very much like Call of Duty is a big influence for how a lot of the things are working. Not just the main menu that I talked about already, but also the way that the guns work. The way that you have to level up guns to unlock the attachments and encourage you to have more of a curve with how you play with it. I really like. I don't like the idea that when you have a gun, you have all the attachments unlocked immediately and you just fiddle around with them and figure out something that you think you're going to like. And then people like me might come up with a combination, roll with that, and not really think much of it. For me personally, I go into like my assault rifles and my SMGs. I go, let's go for things that increase damage, accuracy, stability, whatever the best combination is, I'm going with that. I don't experiment. I don't fiddle around. I don't feel like that's something you can do much in Payday 2 anyway, apart from big stat changing mods, because a lot of it is just making things a bit better, so you just find the best option and run with it. Whereas in Payday 3, I feel like you're going to want to experiment more. Certain attachments will change how things feel by a good bit, and you'll be encouraged to experiment around with them as you level the gun up, which I really, really like. I'm also just adding this in here very briefly while talking about weapons, because I just realised after the fact that I didn't mention it. They did talk about overkill weapons very briefly. I haven't got much to say about it because I still think they look amazing, and I already discussed it before in my last video. Both the Piglet Grenade Launcher and the Thermal Scope Sniper Rifle are brilliant. I just wish there were more. I feel like launching with 2 overkill weapons is a bit of an underwhelming use of the feature, just me personally, because it's an exciting prospect to have, but only having 2 to choose from. It's a bit sad. I know they'll have more down the line, no doubt, but I would have liked 3 or 4 options at launch, like with equipment kind of things, there's a bit more flexibility, and then expanding it from there. You know, you could have put in a minigun and a rocket launcher and then job done. Piglet Grenade Launcher, minigun, RPG, Thermal Sniper Rifle, done. Go ham, you know? That would have been perfect, but the fact there's only 2, it sucks a tiny bit. It's not a massive issue. It's like any other issues I've got with Payday 3. None of them are big game-breaking things, but it's just the odd thing I like to suggest, as I would hope they'd change or add something in. So Fingers crossed there isn't 2 at launch, but it sounds like there might be. The only other thing I want to focus on beyond that, though, is the preset weapons. They have mentioned that those exist now, which are basically the exclusive sets in Payday 2. Now, that is something, again, that is very much like Call of Duty. I thought that at the time when Payday 2 got it, and I'm feeling the same thing now. And I am personally wondering if that's what they're going to put behind microtransactions, or as one of the things. Now, the reason I'm not sure about that is because they stressed in the FAQ that microtransactions were not going to be pay to win. It's going to be cosmetic stuff only. Does a preset weapon count as a cosmetic, though? I'd like to know what you guys think about that, because obviously with a preset weapon, the idea is that you could reach those stats by putting the attachments on yourself, but you're basically skipping the grind to get it. So it's not necessarily pay to win if they put that behind microtransaction. It's like pay to skip the grind, which I guess works for people who, don't have as much time to play games, that kind of thing. So maybe it's in a weird little grey area, I don't know. Would you mind if preset weapons are things locked behind microtransactions, or some of them are, not all of them? I don't know. When I played the builds, there were no microtransactions there, and as we know, at launch, there won't be any. So preset weapons that are in the game at launch won't be locked behind any kind of Payday credits, microtransactions, anything like that. But maybe they'll add some later down the line you can buy exclusively with Payday credits. Would you be bothered by that? Would you care? As long as you make sure that you can get the same stats without them, does it matter? Because that was a big thing with the Black Market update in 2015. You could get stat boosts you couldn't get anywhere else. I want to clarify, I have no idea if that's what they're planning. This is purely me theorizing. I'm just interested to know if that's the angle that they're going. Maybe it's going to be several different things. Preset weapons, certain suits, certain masks, a range of things. We'll have the option to buy some at Payday credits. I just don't know. But I thought it was an interesting thing I wanted to bring up to get your take on and see what all of you guys think. So let me know in the comment section down below. But apart from that, some really, really good stuff there. Some really interesting things in that dev diary, and a really meaty episode that I really enjoyed breaking down. We're getting quite close to the episode going public, and so thank you again to Starbreeze for giving me access to this one. So I'm going to wrap up here and get this video out. Let me know what you think of dev diary number 3. Praises, concerns, anything like that, leave them in the comment section down below. Let me know your opinion, as I've said, on the whole preset weapon thing. I may do a poll on that and talk about it in more detail. I will be interested to see what people think about that. But thank you all very much for watching. I will see you all on Friday with a brand new Payday 3 video where I'll be talking about modding. People have been asking me to discuss that for a while, and I've done some research, chatted with some modders, and got a better idea as how modding might work in Payday 3 and some of the limitations, but also some of the possibilities with crossplay, with Unreal Engine, all the things that are playing around it. It'll be an interesting discussion video, and I'm looking forward to getting it out, so get excited for that on Friday. But apart from that, I will see you all then. Thank you all for watching. Much appreciated. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you all soon with some brand new content. Until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you all soon.